Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special webinar. We have with us today three very distinguished guests, and we are going to be investigating the space of AI and academic writing, and hopefully trying to separate some fact from fiction, some of the myths from truths, and also hopefully to answer some of the questions that you may have around the ethics and the do's and don'ts of using AI in your academic writing. So this webinar is brought to you by Paperpal. I'm sure you're aware that Paperpal is a AI academic writing assistant. And as a precursor to this webinar, we actually ran a survey on some of these questions that we'll be analyzing, and I'll share those results with you very shortly. This webinar is also the start of something called the AI Exchange, where we are hoping to develop a dialogue between researchers, institutions, service providers, in order to see if we can coalesce around some accepted norms for what AI usage in academic writing looks like. So, having said all of that, I'm going to start off by introducing myself. So my name is Chris Leonard. I'm Director of Product Solutions here at Cactus, who are people behind Paperpal. I have been kind of at the interface of technical and editorial roles within scholarly publishing for the last 25, nearly 30 years now. My particular area of interest is around how AI can evaluate academic writing. And in particular, I'm interested in AI detection within manuscripts, how that relates to peer reviewing. And I also have the sense with AI that I had when the internet first came out in the mid-90s, in that this is a very steep learning curve immediately for everyone, and we're not sure what the rules are in some cases, and we're having to feel it out ourselves. So yeah, it very much feels like the early days of the internet in that respect. So it's kind of exciting to be here, and I'm very interested to see what our panel say as well. So I'm going to introduce them individually, and they will introduce themselves. So we're going to start with Joris van Rossum. Joris, would you like to introduce yourself? Thank you.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Joris van Rossum. I am with STM Solutions. STM Solutions is the operational arm of STM. STM is the Global Association of Scientific, Technical, Medical Publishers, and we represent over 150 publishers worldwide. My role is mostly in research integrity as well as AI.
Great. Thank you, Joris. Our next guest is Zhou. Hong, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm the Senior Director of the AI Product Innovation at Wiley. So where I define the AI strategy, drive the AI roadmap, and lead the team to deliver AI services that automate and enhance research and publishing workflow, particularly in the peer review and the information discovery through AI, big data, and then cloud technologies. So I hold a PhD in the 3D modeling with AI from the Upper Swiss University and an MBA in digital transformation from the Oxford University. That's where my interest is a combination of the technology and the business together. So I'm also I'm one of the chefs of the Scholar Kitchen, which have frequently shared the insights on the opportunities and challenges of AI in our industry. I also serve as a co-advisor, especially on AI, and I set the the vision, and also I also help the Wiley to define the Wiley's AI ethic guidelines and the principles, and set the AI vision strategy for the Wiley Research Exchange platform, which is a modern the unified publishing platform, include the submission and screening and review. And and last year we led team we release the Wiley's first AI-driven paper mail detection tools.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hong. And last but not least, Christopher Ostro. Chris, would you like to go ahead?
Oh, yeah. Hey there, everyone. My name is Chris Ostro. I'm an assistant teaching professor at the University of Colorado in the program for writing and rhetoric. I've also done a lot of work and research specifically on AI detection and best practices in the university classroom, and have been focused a lot on AI detection, where the shortfalls in this technology, plus ways that it can be used effectively and ethically, as well as what we can do with AI more broadly to really work with student learning. How can we fit these things in? Clearly, students are excited, but where are the guardrails we can build, where are the shortfalls, and what are the real opportunities that exist too. Nice to meet everyone.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Chris. So without any more ado, I'm going to share my screen and hopefully you will be able to see our presentation. Here it is. So AI for academic writing, separating fact from fiction. And I do hope we're able to separate some of those things for you. There are our panelists. You've already met them, so we will move on. We're hosting this webinar on the AirMeet platform. Now, if you've never used the AirMeet platform before, it's excellent, but it's also it also is something you might take a bit of getting used to. So if you want to chat with your fellow attendees, you can see there's a chat window highlighted there. If you want to pose a question to the panelists, there is a separate Q&A section straight underneath that icon. And at some point in this presentation, you will also be required to take part in some polls. So we would like your opinions on some of these questions as well. I hope that covers the main things you need to know for AirMeet. So what we'll see today is some of the highlights from the Paperpal user survey on the use of AI in academic writing. We're then going to have a discussion around some of those concerns and queries. And then finally, at the end, the last 10 minutes or so, I hope, we will be able to answer your questions. And at the end of the presentation, I will also explain how you can further interact with us if you have additional questions. Okay, so what is this survey we've done? So Paperpal recently sent out a survey to get some insights into researchers' opinions on the use of AI in academic writing. We had just over 1,400 responses, and they were all reasonably senior people. So when we were asking them how AI is transforming their work, the top answers were it helps them to write better, it saves time, and it also makes them more productive. You can see on the left-hand side here, these are predominantly university and postgraduate people. So 79% were higher than a bachelor's level. Yeah, and they love it to polish grammar and language, improve structure and flow, finding literature, understanding complex content, and support with citations and references. So maybe nothing super surprising there, but their use of AI it comes with a cost of anxiety. So academics are anxious and scared about being flagged for plagiarism and having their use of AI being held up as potential misconduct against them. And that was, almost 90% of respondents said that. Some of their other concerns were around accuracy, the loss of their original voice, your unique style of writing, and around ethical misuse. So the more academics use AI, the higher their anxiety levels, which is something I think isn't ideal. And it would be nice if they could use AI ethically with clear consciences. And one of the things which leads to that anxiety is there's a lot of uncertainty and vagueness and cross-industry agreement on what recommended disclosures are required. So over half of academics have never disclosed AI use when they have used it. And those who have disclosed AI use feel that there was a negative bias against them or increased scrutiny. And it's a situation, like I said earlier, where we're all feeling our way. We don't know necessarily what the best solution is to support researchers in academic writing. The journals are struggling with their own internal policies, as are funders, as are institutes as well. So it would be helpful for all involved if we could start coalescing around some agreements as to what ethical use of AI in academic writing entails. So yeah, academics need guidance. Ambiguous guidelines were as much of a problem as not having any guidelines. And just over half of academics want clear, consistent institutional guidelines for AI. So your university, for instance, do they have clear guidelines on how to use AI in academic writing? So these are some of the themes that we're going to examine. And our first theme is having manuscripts flagged up for AI-generated writing or plagiarism. And this is where we want your input for the first poll. So the question for you all is, if my AI detection score is high, that means I've plagiarized. Do you think that's fact, true, or fiction, untrue? Please vote now. And for my fellow panelists, we all have to vote as well. Otherwise, this will stay on the screen for us. Lovely. So we're seeing some nice engagement there. If my AI detection score is high, it means I've plagiarized. So we're seeing about a third of people agree with that statement and about 2/3 disagree. So this is where I'm going to stop presenting, and I'm going to, there we go. switch back so we're all on the same screen at the same time. And I'm going to start with a question for you, Chris, which is, what is the issue here about equating high AI detection scores with plagiarism? Surely AI would be very good at finding out if you've plagiarized something.
So actually, I'd say there are two issues here. One of them is more of a technological issue in terms of where AI detection is right now. Currently in the literature, especially if we're looking at companies like Pangram specifically, but Turnitin as well, AI detection is really good and reliable if you have something that's 100% AI written or 100% human written. But for everything in the middle, any editing, any polish, any touch up my grammar, immediately really hurts the reliability of those tools. So by all means, if I have a student paper I get that says 100%, I might be skeptical and reach out to that student. But anything less than 100%, that score could be for any number of things. The other second issue is more of a use pattern issue, right? Students are increasingly using AI in really ethical ways, but it's going to end up increasing that score a little bit, right? When my students write a rough draft and then have ChatGPT make this sentence sound a little more, polished or whatever, that's totally ethical as far as I'm concerned. The ideas there are still theirs. They've just polished it up with a little bit of lacquer. But that's going to really mess up AI detection. Or, if they're using it when they're outlining, if they're using it to help make their topic sentences and thesis more clear, that's going to end up really giving a little more uncertainty to those reports. The way we're teaching students to write and use these tools right now, the ethical use of these tools is going to lead to some amount of a score for AI detection generally anyway. And so that's why
Yeah.
in my own classroom, I have my students disclose use, and I try to take AI detection and compare what did they tell me they did with what does this score kind of look like.
Okay. So that sounds like a quite enlightened approach to the AI detection in essays and homeworks and things like that. But there are other places which seem to hold a lot of sway over what AI detection scores tell them. And you hear kind of horror stories of students failing classes because some AI tool says that their work was AI generated or substantially AI generated, where they insist it never was. So there's a risk, right, of
Of course.
relying solely on AI
I think
detectors.
part of the problem here is also a shortcoming of policies and understanding kind of across the board, right? This is, we literally just hit 3 years ago, ballpark, that GPT-3 was made public for students, faculty. It's around that time. I think we're a little ahead, but whatever. But, right now, universities are still struggling to come up with policies in a timely fashion, and different faculty members are at different places of understanding. Right, you're totally right.
Right.
My classroom might have a sort of enlightened approach to this, and then my student might immediately go to a different class that has a full AI prohibition, right?
Yeah.
And then another class after that where teachers have never heard of AI. And I think we're just in that phase of flux right now, right? A lot of stuff is liquid, and right now there is a bit of chaos. There is a bit of risk, 100%, but that there's
Yeah.
also a bit of opportunity. This is the time where we can establish healthy use patterns, good guardrails, and clear expectations, hopefully. I think this is the time where if
Sure.
we do stuff correctly and message these things ideally, we actually could get these things going, hopefully on a good track down the road.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Hong, I'm going to come to you next. So how should researchers interpret these AI scores responsibly? Is there, uh, how should they behave, once their work is flagged as being potentially AI generated?
Right. So this is a good question, and also is I think this is a common question many researchers have. And then I think the one thing is accuracy of AI content detector is varies widely by discipline, by training data, and heavily also heavily rely on the text has been added. So the false positive is a common things. So if we use them, we need to treat them as a hint, indicator, but not verdicts. So, for example, in the Wiley, the research exchange platform, which we also have the screening as a module to automatically to screen the quality integrity issues of the manuscript. So we never rely on the AI detection only for integrity detection. So it's just a flag to trigger the deeper the checks alongside the other clues, like the fake references, suspect emails, manipulated images, etc. So I think the detection tool can help identify the suspect, the manuscript, but they are not the proof, full proof, and also must be used in the with broader integrity check. So I think for me, I think we need to educate the researchers that the high score doesn't mean the cheat, doesn't mean the misconduct. It means maybe it means let's look more carefully, and the transparency.
Okay, sure. And Joris, come to you finally. Very broad question for you here, but how should educators and institutions or journals draw the line between ethical and unethical use of AI in academic writing? Oh, you're on mute, I think, Joris. Nope. No. You can hear him. Okay.
You're good.
I can't hear him.
I can't either.
Sorry, Joris, go ahead.
No, sorry, he is muted now. I can't hear Joris.
Have I done something wrong? No. We'll come back to you, Joris. Maybe there's an issue where he has to rejoin. We'll come back to Joris and that particular question about how to draw the line between ethical and unethical use of AI. In the meantime, I'm going to go back to our presentation and we'll have a look at the second theme. So from our survey, there were 4 themes we identified, and we will have a look at the second theme in just 1 second.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Joris, we can.
Do you want me to still answer the question?
Yes, please. That would be wonderful. So I'll just rephrase it, which is how should educators, institutions, and journals set about defining ethical and unethical use of AI in academic writing?
Yeah, sure. I think Chris mentioned something about institutions. Let me talk a bit about journals and publishers. First of all, policies differ by publisher and journals, so authors should always consult the Guide for Authors for these guidelines when submitting a manuscript. However, at STM, we have developed some general guidelines for the ethical use of generative AI in the publication process. And we published a report at the end of 2023 with some guidelines, and I will post the link in the chat later on. So again, policies differ per publisher and journal, but in general, we recommended the following principles. First of all, using publicly available Gen AI as a basic tool that supports authors in refining, correcting, formatting, and editing. That is permissible, and not necessarily you need to you don't have to mention that, declare that when you submit a manuscript. However, when authors are using Gen AI that transcends that basic author support tool use case, then we recommend that it disclose that at submission. So the editor can then make a decision on it, on whether it's allowed or not. What is not allowed is that the creation, altering, manipulation of original research data and results, such as images, plots, and photographs, etc. And of course, Gen AI cannot be credited as an author of a published work. So this is more or less I would say the general consensus, but again, policies differ per journal and per publisher and probably also per subject area.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Joris. Thank you. And when you have a moment, if you can share the link to that in the chat window, I'm sure everyone would love to read those guidelines. Thank you.
Yeah, I just share it.
Maybe we'll come back later to what are the consequences of not declaring AI usage. We'll save that for later in the conversation. So some of the user thoughts that we had in our survey about this. So some people are saying, yeah, AI tools is the use of them is taking an academic shortcut. Now, I don't know if that's a positive or negative statement. That could be viewed either way. And AI generated sentences are always considered misconduct or plagiarized. Again, I'm not 100% sure of the veracity of that statement. AI generated sentences may not always be flagged up. But if you read a whole paper of AI generated sentences, you can certainly tell there's not the level of granularity in those sentences, and they seem to have a very clean narrative style, which everyone has their own kind of separate voice. And if there's a separate voice missing, you can sometimes identify that. But again, we may come on to that in a second. So the second theme was around the publication myths and editorial realities. And what do we mean by that? This is when our second poll comes in. So if you're ready to vote, journals will reject research manuscripts that acknowledge AI use in their writing. Is that fact or is that fiction? I will also vote on this.
We have to.
We have to. Yeah, exactly. So again, interestingly, we're seeing a third agreeing with that statement, and around 2/3 of you disagreeing. I think what these polls are showing is that there's a lot of uncertainty amongst researchers for these particular questions. So if I press stop there, we'll call that 3862, I think. And I'm going to ask some questions of our panelists again. So Joris, I'm going to come to you again, first of all. So how do editors and to an extent reviewers as well respond to AI assisted manuscripts? So that is manuscripts which declare that they have had AI assistance. Does it always lead to rejection, or is the review slightly more stricter if the authors have declared AI use?
No, absolutely not. I mean, publishers definitely encourage the declaration of AI use, and in some cases, as I mentioned, when it's used as a basic author support tool, the declaration is not needed. But in other cases, we very much recommend it, and it really helps the editors and the reviewers to review the paper. So we very much encourage it. We understand that it's a bit unclear also what journals do demand a declaration, others do not. Later this month, or actually the next month in September, we will publish at STM a new document presenting a classification in which the various ways that artificial intelligence can be used to assist in the preparation of the manuscript, and we encourage publishers to adapt that to their own policies. So they make it much clearer to the authors how AI should be declared in the manuscripts, and hopefully that will bring some guidance and clarity. But to come back to your question, no, definitely not. It is very much encouraged to declare it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joris. Hong, just coming to you now. So if AI can be used to support authors in preparing manuscripts for academic journals, is that true of all journals? Could an author use AI assistance and expect to get published in a top tier journal, let's say?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, because actually the researchers are already using the AI, not only to help them conduct papers, such as the polish language, improve clarity, all this help them structure the manuscript, but also it's becoming more and more common to help the researcher do research from ideation to hypothesis gathering, generation, experiment, coding, and the result analysis, etc. Literature review, of course, experiment analysis. So it's already happened. So it's moving from AI is moving from the just AI tools to the AI research assistant to the even AI scientist. So in Wiley, the recent global research survey, AI is seen to the outperform, which we received more than 5,000 the result from the feedback from the participant researchers globally. So AI is seen to the outperform humans in over half of the 43 the research use cases. It's already outperformed it. And AI research assistants are becoming more popular. So it cannot only support the research, the research, but also to make the manuscript the more readable, and therefore the more publishable. So I think this is a very, very clear. I guess the top tier the journals is also value the clear, well written the summation. So it do help, improve the chance of acceptance.
So Hong, you're obviously involved with Wiley's Rex submission platform, and you must have spoken to a lot of researchers over the last few years. What's the most common misconception you hear from researchers about AI and academic publishing?
Yes, this is a very, very good. We do, because in order to define the right product design, we need to understand what they think. I think the one of the misconceptions is, as you already clearly mentioned, at the beginning of this in the survey, is AI use equals misconduct. So I think this is something we need to make clear, and makes many researchers, authors fear to disclose the AI usage. So this is something. So that's not true. So I think the real red flag is for the editors is when the AI use isn't disclosed, or when the AI use is to replace but not support the researcher. So on the intellectual contribution. So I think for me it's clear the guidance and the guidelines and the training are the key. So we need to help the researchers better understand what means the disclosure, and then and also communication is very important. Whenever you researcher have some unsure, or some questions, it's better to talk to ask the editors directly. So for example, in the recent, I'm sorry.
No, sorry. I was just highlighting that there are also some similar quotes from the Paperpal survey on here, where they're saying only students use AI, serious researchers don't. I think that probably reflects a misunderstanding of how the research output is evaluated, because maybe that was true 3 or 4 years ago. I don't think it is necessarily true anymore today. We are just in the interest of time, going to press on to our third theme, which is AI disclosures, strangely enough, and responsible use. Now, this is our third question for our audience here. If AI was only used to edit text, I don't need to disclose it. If you were paying close attention to Joris earlier, you'll know the answer to this. But please vote away. Slightly closer than a third versus 2/3 this time. Let's see some more answers coming. Okay, I think we'll pause it there. Let's call it 60-40, agreeing with that statement. Joris, would you just like to comment on that? Oh, you've gone mute again, I'm afraid. I'll let you go out and maybe come back in if that's what you need to do. In the meantime, while Joris is doing that, Chris, I'm going to come to you.
Sure.
We heard Joris earlier talk about what counts as significant AI use that needs to be disclosed. If you'd like to expand on that, you're more than welcome. But I'm also interested in your views on what are the risks of hiding disclosure. Sorry, just before you do that, Joris, welcome back. Yeah,
Take it, Joris.
I was just inviting you to comment on the poll results then.
Yeah, again, the guidelines we published, it states that authors do not have to declare it, but again, it differs per journal and by publisher, so it can still be the case that someone would ask for it. In any case, for any use case that transcends that particular use case, then yes, please declare.
Okay, wonderful. So, Chris, we were just about to embark upon an answer to the question of what constitutes significant AI use that needs to be disclosed, and what are the risks of hiding disclosure. So,
yeah, so I think what needs
using
to
AI
be
and not telling anyone.
Sorry, yeah. I think what needs to be disclosed really changes a lot on context, right? So, I'm in a classroom where I teach I would argue I teach what's considered a process-oriented course. I don't necessarily care about how good or bad the final quality of the product is. I mean, I do, but the bigger thing is how the student got there. I'm trying to teach them a process for taking the thoughts they have and putting them on a page, or I guess on a screen now, right? And so because I'm so involved in the process, I really want insight into their AI use throughout, right? Not because I'm judging, not because it's part of their grade, not because I'm a mean authoritarian teacher, right? I'm doing it because I want to know what they're doing so I can give them direction and advice, right? If I can see, oh, my student's using AI this way and it's really an incorrect way to use it, it's really in their best interest that I can help and give feedback and teach them to use it better.
Right.
I'm,
Okay.
especially how in this current moment, how nice is it to have a faculty member who actually is like using AI a lot and actually can teach some of that, right? And so I really want that disclosure. But, in an academic, if I'm trying to publish something setting, I really have to be mindful of what the journal, what the publisher, whatever is looking for. And that's going to vary wildly. And so my policy has been like any level of use. I mean, if I literally use it just to like correct grammar, I'm just going to mention that quickly. If I did anything like more thoroughly, I'm going to mention that quickly. I'm going to like go into detail on that. That's why I developed those AI disclosure forms for my course anyway. And yeah, ultimately you asked about the risks of hiding it. I think the risks of hiding it are more about how it makes you appear. I think if you're upfront and say, hey, I wrote this piece and I did use AI to fancy up the grammar, but ultimately this research was done manually this way or whatever, that's kind of owning it and seems a lot more honest. Whereas if I have to find out my student used AI detection, or used AI by using AI detection, then all of a sudden it feels like I've had to drag the truth out of them, which is never ideal. I think this culture of disclosure is probably in everyone's best interests generally.
So obviously, as AI becomes more competent in some of these tasks. One of the things it can already do is mimic someone's writing style. So you can feed a load of your written documents in and say, okay, thanks for this article. Now rewrite it in my style. I think these are called humanizers. Obviously, this is going to have some effect on academic integrity at some point. I don't know if you want to comment on that, or Hong, or both of you.
Actually, can I say something really quick about humanizers? I think the word humanizer is used a bit too broadly, because what you're describing, like I have a custom GPT that is a bunch of stuff I've written that I can upload something
Mhm.
to, and it'll make sound like Chris. And actually, my experience is that has not actually flagged AI detection yet, at least in my own work. Granted, I'm always doing a bunch of editing after the fact anyway, so that's probably why. But the other thing the word humanizer is used for is stuff like those apps that exist, undetectable.com, right, where you can upload a paper and it just makes it so AI detection won't catch it. And I think that is basically always unethical, right? Like, there are two very different things there. One, to make it just sound correct or sound more like the author. Great. And I think most publishers would be fine with that in my experience. But one that's just to
Mhm.
make it undetectable, that
Right.
feels distinctly criminal. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I
Oh.
just add one more point. So I totally agree with Chris first, for the Chris first side, and also I want to, before we talk about this, I just want to ask the myself why they need the humanizer. Why they need this? Is it because they have misunderstanding about the AI use equal to the misconduct, or they just deliberately want to do something to this to increase the acceptance? So I think if the and then the basically for me user the humanizer is just dodge AI detector. It's many ways to dodge AI detector. So AI detector is not that stable. So it's arm race. It's nobody win. So it shifts focus from the honest science to the gaming the system. So it's enrolled the trust. So I don't think that's it's a good idea. Actually, it's a bad idea. Let's do this.
Joris, if you have anything to add, please speak up. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next theme because we are starting to run behind. So let me, it just takes a couple of seconds. I have to reshare my presentation deck after every screen swap, but that's fine. So we're moving on to the fourth theme now. And the fourth theme is something I think we'll all have an opinion on. So let's come to that. It is guidelines and building up AI literacy. So audience, again, we've got a question for you. And the question is, well, the statement is, there are clear guidelines on AI use in academia. I think this is more of an opinion than fact or fiction, but you can have them as agree or disagree. And I have voted. So this is running at about 88 to 12, saying this is a fiction. I'd like to speak to those 12% at some point, but maybe we'll move on. So if I stop sharing my screen, hopefully the panelists will come back into view. So we've got a few more questions from me. Then we're going to open up to questions from the audience. And just looking on my little Q&A slide here, we could be here for another hour answering questions from the audience. So let's try to make some time. So quickly, I'm going to ask each of you, do you think there is merit in having global standards for AI use in academia. We've spoken a lot about currently every journal and maybe even every article type has its own specific requirements. I think some of that is why it's very confusing to researchers and to authors. Is there merit in having a global standard on AI use in academic writing? Who would like to weigh in on that one first?
So the Joris, you're talking.
Joris has gone on mute again. Hong, so should we be trying to standardize things, or is it important that each individual journal or article type has its own rules?
I think this is a fact. We have started seeing the framework around the standard, around the ethical AI in publishing, like COP AI guidelines, STM, the task force, and even European commissions that has recently published the update living guidelines on the response user for generative AI in the research in April. So I think that this is definitely is a way to go. And we need to share the vocabulary and benchmark and standard. Otherwise, the publisher end up to reinvent the wheel. But I think this also, maybe there's some small extras or requirements, the guidelines for different specific disciplines, specific journals. So I think we need to have the common ground first, and then the different journals or discipline can add their own stuff on top of this. So I think this is
that makes sense. And I guess Joris, a part of what STM does is trying to establish what that common ground is in terms of ethical use of AI.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Somehow the system doesn't like my answers because it kicks me out every time I say something. But let me try. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I'm not sure if a global standard should be prioritized, to be honest, because I think there are a lot of different areas, scientific areas. Some areas might have different requirements in terms of AI than the other. So I think we should take care with imposing some global standard. It's also in this early phase still of AI. It's maybe good to experiment to see where things are going. So I would say global standards, of course, clarity is important, and some shared guidelines in principle are very important. But global standards, that's maybe too early, and also the question whether that's something that is desirable at all.
Sure. I've asked enough questions. I'm going to ask one more, and then we're switching to audience questions. So, Chris, I'm going to come to you. The year is 2030, the distant future. How do you think AI has affected academic writing?
Yeah, so I think on the academic level, like in the classroom, I think we will probably have real standardized just like level setting classrooms for like AI literacy. I think one of the big problems right now I see at the university level is if a student came from a school district that had the resources and the foresight to think about AI 3 years ago, they have such an advantage now over the average student. And like, so in my classroom, I am often introducing AI to some students while also working with like very high advanced users. And that creates a gap that's just really difficult for universities right now. So I think something like that. I think 2030 there will be a required AI literacy 101 class. There'll probably be ethics as part of that as well, and hopefully we have some clear idea of some basic right and wrong things. But I do agree with Joris and Hong that just like standards for publishing, I think standards inside of the academy for teaching and stuff will also probably vary department to department. Hopefully not course to course anymore, but hopefully, people in the writing department have standards that they enforce, and then people in the visual arts department will probably have their own different standards and ethical lines, and that's what I'm hopeful for. And then beyond by that point, hopefully we also have a few better tools, and we'll have more faculty who have experience with it, which I think is just one of the hugest issues right now.
Okay. Yeah,
may I add
absolutely.
one more
I think
point
that makes
about
sense.
this?
Sure.
Yeah, so this is very interesting. So I think we also need to think about it. Is the AI is changing the meaning of the writing? in the future. What's the meaning of the writing? Is it just the write word and then the producing the sentences? Or I think that maybe in the future it's much more than that. It's about the framing ideas, critical thinking, and also even adapting for the different tones for the different audience, etc. So there's many things, and then I think it free us from the repetitive work, drafting, proofreading, formatting, etc. So we can focus, researcher can focus on the originality, reasoning, and etc. So there's more value added work. So I think that also in the future, maybe the writing is not just about writing the text, but also because thanks to the multimodal, the AI development, it's expanding beyond the text. So future, we not only the write text, we also the edit and the create the output will be the audio, video, interactive data, images. There's much richer output, research output. I think this is what I can foresee in the future.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Hong. It's now Q&A time. I'm just quickly scanning the list. I can see 37 questions have been presented to me, so we're not going to get through all of those. However, let me just change the screen here. Afterwards, myself and maybe Chris and maybe others will be available on the Discord channel for Paperpal. If you scan the code there, you will be able to join that particular Discord channel. And there's a section of that called Let's Talk AI, and you'll see my face and my name in there. That's how you know you're in the right place, and we'll try to continue the conversation a little bit in there. But for now, let's get to these questions. So I'm looking away from you, but it's only because I'm looking on the other screen over here. So the good news is we've actually answered quite a lot of these already. Here's a very practical question. Which AI tools would you recommend a researcher to use to improve their academic manuscript writing? I don't know if you have a particular view on that, Chris or Hong in particular.
I can add it because that we have also discussed the similar things in the recent COP, the AI forum, and in July, and we recently published the Scholar Kitchen post. I put in the link in the chat. There's over more than the 50 the AI detection tools in the market, including the open source one, commercial one, and then either some is dedicated ones created by publisher itself. So I don't think there's a one single tools can do this. It's even the same tools for this can perform differently in different scenario, in different disciplines, and also even different tools they can get the different scores for the even same piece of text. So there's no single tools to do this. I think it's really based on your use cases, your scenario. Yeah.
So there's a fascinating question here from an audience member in Iraq, and I'm going to ask it exactly as it was written here. Do we measure an academic by how good their grammar is, or by the weight their ideas hold? Wouldn't removing the writing / grammar part of the equation speed up research output and free up cognitive load that could be used elsewhere? It's a question I've had floating around in the back of my head as well. A lot of misconduct in inverted commas seems to come from the narrative the authors spin around their results. If they were just exchanging results with minimal narrative, would that reduce capacity for misconduct and free up cognitive load to be used elsewhere? What do we think about the future of academic writing not being writing?
I mean, to some degree, I think that's a process we've already been in, even pre-AI, right? We were starting to see more and more academics lean into video formats, presentations. Tons of fields have leaned more into poster presentations. How many real published academics have podcasts now? Substacks, things like that, right? We've been taking a multimodal approach since the internet made it more easy. The AI has sped that process up. And to the question asker's point, you're totally right. Correct grammar has always been sort of academia has always had a layer of pretension in it, myself included, right? And I understand that. And in some ways, AI is hopefully going to chip away at that. I think part of the concern right now, though, is you have some people who are using it just for grammar polish or whatever, and then other people who are using it to generate uncritically content. Because especially with hallucinations, that uncritically is a huge deal. And that's the problem, is when we talk about AI use, that's a big basket. Half of the stuff in there is great, and half of the stuff in there is a big problem currently. And we're just trying to figure out how to filter through those things. And right now, we don't have a system, right? Like, that's the reality. We have not figured this problem out yet, but we're getting there. Talks like this are a big part of how we get there, I think.
Yeah. And I'll share these questions with all my fellow panelists at some point, but you'll see there is still a lot of uncertainty around what happens to manuscripts once they're submitted. So there's a lot of questions around how is plagiarism assessed at a journal? How is AI generated text determined at a journal? And what can I do when an article is returned to me and it says it's rejected because we think a large part of it has been AI generated? There's a researcher from the UK here who has had exactly that problem. I guess, the opaqueness of what happens to a manuscript once it's submitted is probably a part of what's adding to the uncertainty around and the anxiety, as we saw earlier. So yeah, I think a journal which was transparent with what is being evaluated and how might be a more attractive proposition to an author than a black box which says this has been rejected because it's AI generated. I think we're almost at the hour. There's so many questions, a lot of them asking fairly similar things. So what I suggest is I'll share these questions with our fellow panelists. We might come up with some answers to some of them. If you want to go on to the Discord channel now, I'll be there and I can answer questions as they are asked for a little while anyway. And I just want to take a moment to thank our three panelists, Hong, Joris, and Chris, for their insights into how AI is affecting academic writing right now and in the future. Highly recommend you look at the links that were shared by our speakers. There's a wealth of knowledge and experience in the work they have shared there. So please take time to look at it. And thank you, everyone on the call today, on the webinar. Thank you for your attention and your wonderful questions. And we'll see you all again very soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.